It's been a crazy week. Donald Trump has been elected for 1 week, and already he has done more than Joe Biden accomplished in 4 years. The funny thing is, there's a lot that they're not talking about in the mainstream media. It's a good thing you watch Wolves in Finance, because I'm going to tell you all the dirt. In Donald Trump's first week in office, he's been focusing on appointing key positions. I'm going to walk through all the major appointments. What you will see is that this is an attack on the liberal agenda. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to listen to all these decisions, and then at the end of the video, I'm going to ask you to comment, because we have a big question to answer. This is our first chance to see Donald Trump's decision-making as a leader. We need to answer the question, is Donald Trump doing a good job?
What a stupid question that is. What a stupid question. But I watch you a lot. You ask a lot of stupid questions.
I'm going to start with Donald Trump's first decision, to hire Elon Musk. Donald Trump announced that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy together are going to run the Department of Government Efficiency. Their job is to cut government waste. Elon Musk posted this tweet with the acronym DOGE. They have already chosen a mascot. It is the meme dog, the same dog that is used on the meme cryptocurrency Dogecoin. It seems like he's approaching this job with the maturity of a 16-year-old boy. This is Elon Musk explaining what he's going to do.
We just take a look at all the federal agencies and say, do we really need whatever it is, 428 federal agencies? Like, there's so many that people have never even heard of, and that have overlapping areas of responsibility. We should, I don't know, we should get, I mean, there are more federal agencies than there are years since the establishment of the United States, which means that we've created more than one federal agency per year on average. That seems a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. So we should have, that seems crazy. I think we should be able to get away with 99 agencies. I don't know. That seems like a lot of agencies.
It's a lot. Yeah. 2 per state. That's a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
So he wants to reduce the 428 federal agencies to 99 agencies. That means that 329 agencies are going to be eliminated? Do you think this is a good idea? That seems like a lot. Let me know down below if you think we should eliminate 329 government agencies. People are freaking out about this. Personally, I think people need to just calm down. Let me give you a reality check. The Department of Government Efficiency is not a real agency. Elon Musk does not actually have a job. Donald Trump cannot just create an agency out of thin air. That's not how government works. You can see this in Trump's press release, where he says, the Department of Government Efficiency will provide advice and guidance from outside of government. So there is no job, no budget, and no actual power to do anything. So for example, if Elon decides a group of government employees is not being effective, it's not like he can go and fire them. He has no power. I want to remind people that this has been done before. When Ronald Reagan was president, he formed something called the Grace Commission that did a review of government and identified 2,478 recommendations to eliminate waste. This was an incredibly good thing. But if Elon Musk is doing the same thing, we have to be realistic about what is going on. This is going to be a group of rich businessmen sitting around a table coming up with a list of recommendations on ways to improve the government. They're going to give this list to Donald Trump, and he's going to decide whether or not to implement the recommendations. They're like volunteer consultants who are working for free. So to all you people freaking out, I want to assure you that there are limits to what Elon Musk can do. Now, I actually hope that Elon Musk does a good job with this, because there is a lot of waste. Let me give you one example that really bothers me. Are you aware that the government is paying over $200,000 to perform a study on transgender monkeys? This sounds really strange. Transgender people are confused about their gender. So how do the scientists know if these monkeys are confused about their gender? It turns out that the scientists are forcing the monkeys to become transgender. But it's even worse than that. The point of the study is that transgender people are experiencing higher rates of HIV than the rest of the population. The study is trying to figure out why that happens. So they're taking male monkeys, injecting them with female hormones to make them transgender, and then infecting them with HIV to see what happens. This sounds like a horror movie. How are we allowing this in the United States? Well, guess who authorized this study? Someone named Dr. Anthony Fauci. I'm sorry, but this guy sounds sick. I feel so bad for these poor monkeys. This is just evil stuff. This is what government waste looks like. So, if Elon Musk happens to see this video, can you please stop this study? I would like my tax dollars back. Thank you very much. Let us move on to the actual government positions. Donald Trump made conservatives mad by announcing Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. There are a couple of things you need to understand. Secretary of State is the most sought-after position in government. If there's one position that everyone wants, it is to be Secretary of State. If you remember, Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State before she ran for president. The reason this is so attractive is because you're in charge of foreign policy. Obviously, the president's really in charge, but the Secretary of State is the point person. So they're flying all over the world and meeting with world leaders. Meanwhile, Trump has to stay in Washington, D.C. most of the time. So if he wants to do a deal with a foreign country, he's going to send the Secretary of State in advance to set up the deal, so that when Trump arrives, the groundwork has already been done. So Secretary of State is a very powerful position and a way to get contacts and foreign policy experience. For Marco Rubio, this is a stepping stone for him to run for president in 2028. He has ran for president before. We all know that he wants to be president. Now, I know a lot of you automatically think that J.D. Vance is the obvious pick for president in 2028, but that's not necessarily true. If we look at history, the vice president usually does not become the next president. We also know that Marco Rubio is a darling of big money donors. So, if Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance ran against each other in 2028, all the fundraising money would go to Rubio. So the competition in the White House is going to be intense. Every day, in every meeting, J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio are going to be competing with each other for Donald Trump's approval. This could be a big disaster. Just to remind you, we already know how Donald Trump and Marco Rubio interact with each other because we saw it when they ran against each other for president. I'm going to roll you a clip. This is how I imagine every meeting is going to go in the White House.
In all fairness, Marco is not a negotiator. I watched him melt down, and I'll tell you, it was one of the saddest things I've ever seen. He's not going down.
He thinks the Palestinian is a real estate deal.
And these people may even be tougher than Chris Christie, okay?
The Palestinians are not a real estate deal, Donald.
Okay, no. A deal,
They're not a real estate deal.
Is a deal. Let me tell you,
a deal is not a deal when you're dealing with terrorists. Have you ever negotiated with terrorists?
You are not a negotiator. You are not a negotiator. And with your thinking, you will never bring peace. You will never bring peace.
Donald might be able to build condos in the Palestinian areas, but he's not going to. This is not a real estate deal.
Senator, he will never be able to do it. I think I may be able to do it, although I will say this. Probably the toughest deal of any kind is that particular deal.
This could be a big disaster. The reason that conservatives are so angry that Donald Trump picked Marco Rubio is because Rubio has long been identified with the swamp. He is seen as a puppet of the big money donors. People think he's on the side of big government as opposed to freedom. Here's Alex Jones confronting him about this years ago.
Right.
Marco Rubio the snake. Little frat boy here.
All right.
Yeah.
Who are you, man?
Yeah,
Who's
sure.
This guy? I swear to God, I don't
You
know
better
who
hope
you are,
you can
man.
deplatforming. Tens of millions of views.
InfoWars.
Bigger than Rush Limbaugh. He knows who InfoWars is. Playing this joke over here. That's why the deplatforming didn't work.
But here's the question. Here's a question.
Hey, don't touch me again, man. I'm asking you not to touch me.
Well, sure, I was just patted you nicely.
I know, but I don't want to be. I don't know.
You want me to get
man.
arrested?
I don't know who you are.
It's not just going to take my
You're not
First
going to get arrested,
Amendment.
man. You're
It's
not
not
going
just
to get
enough to
arrested.
take my
I'll take
First
care of it
Amendment.
myself.
Oh, he'll beat me up.
I didn't say that.
I know I am, but he's so mad. You're not going to silence me. You're not going to silence America.
But there are people.
You are literally like a little gangster thug.
There.
Alex Jones just went on his show and gave an update on his concerns about Rubio.
Rubio's been kissing his ass for years now, but did stab him in the back. So has Lindsey Graham. And Rubio's obviously blackmailed, and we know the whole history of why. And I'm not saying he's not smart. I'm not saying he's not a good speaker. I'm not saying he hasn't been a big Trump booster for at least 2 years. But these are the people that tried to put Trump in prison. These are the people, at the end of the day, the neocons run the Democrat Party's foreign policy. They're the ones that want World War III. They're the ones that tried to get Trump killed twice. This is a life and death situation. So this is the hill to die on. We cannot let these people get into the administration.
You can see that Candace Owens was nodding her head in agreement. So conservatives are very upset about this choice. My personal opinion is I'm willing to give him a chance. He's a young guy. Like all of us, he's able to change over time. Let's wait and see if he changes to become more pro-Trump and less DC swamp. I also think that Donald Trump picked Marco Rubio because he made a secret deal. Now, I have no evidence of this, but this is just my opinion. I think he agreed to give the deep state Marco Rubio on the condition that he would get his other appointments confirmed. All his other major positions still have to be approved by the Senate. He gave the Senate Marco Rubio in order to get his other appointments, including this next one. The most shocking appointment so far was Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. This is the head of the Department of Justice. Now, I have mentioned Matt Gaetz several times on this channel because whenever there is a congressional hearing, Matt Gaetz is the guy who goes after the FBI and the Department of Justice. Here he is questioning the current Attorney General, Merrick Garland.
In Mr. Pomerantz's book. So Pomerantz writes this book, which I'm sure you're aware of, where he says, we put together the legal eagles to get Trump. We got all these folks together and we assembled them for that purpose. And so when we on the Judiciary Committee think about attacks on the judicial process, our concern is that the facts and the law aren't being followed. A target is acquired, here Trump, and then you assemble the legal talent from DOJ, Mr. Pomerantz, and you bring everybody in to get him. And meanwhile, the judge is making money on it. The judge is making money on it, or the judge's family's making money on it for stuff that you yourself wouldn't do. No one's going to buy this. No one's going to believe it. It's going to create great disruption. And I am saddened by it because, like you, I have given my life to the law. I care deeply about the law. And I think that the lawfare we've seen against President Trump will do great damage well beyond our time in public service.
You can see that he cares about this issue. He already knows what's going on. He's deeply knowledgeable about all the information around the lawfare against Donald Trump. He's also known to be deeply loyal to Donald Trump. Matt Gaetz is especially qualified to tackle lawfare because he himself was a victim of it. He was being investigated by the Department of Justice for sleeping with an underage girl and trafficking. In 2022, the entire investigation was dropped because it turns out that the witnesses were not reliable. The entire case was a sham. It appears that he was being targeted simply because he was an outspoken conservative. The fear in Washington, D.C. about Matt Gaetz is that he's going to come in and clean house in the FBI and the Department of Justice from top to bottom. But given the election results, this seems to be what what the American people want. They want these institutions to be reformed. Some of the critics of Matt Gaetz are pointing to this clip saying that he made offensive comments about women.
Like, why is it that the women with the least likelihood of getting pregnant are the ones most worried about having abortions? Nobody wants to impregnate you if you look like a thumb.
He has responded to the criticism with this.
Is it safe to say that based off of your comments, you're suggesting that these women at these abortion rallies are ugly and overweight?
Yes.
What do you say to people who think that those comments are offensive?
Be offended.
So let me ask you, do you find Matt Gaetz offensive? Or do you think this is who should be Attorney General? The next shocking appointment was Pete Hegseth for Defense Secretary. Let me just explain this position because some people find it confusing. The Defense Secretary is the civilian who oversees the military. In the United States, the military has always taken orders from civilians. We've never been a military dictatorship. That's just how our politics works. The people elect a president who's the commander-in-chief. The president then appoints a defense secretary who oversees the military. In this case, Donald Trump picked a news anchor from the weekend news show Fox and Friends. Here is Pete Hegseth talking about women in combat.
I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. It hasn't made us more effective, hasn't made us more lethal, has made fighting more complicated. We've all served with women and they're great. It just, our institutions don't have to incentivize that in places where traditionally, not traditionally, over human history, men in those positions are more capable.
People are getting offended by this. What do you think? Do you think we should be sending our women to die in war? Or should we leave that to the men? Here's another incident where Pete almost kills someone with an axe.
With the axe. Who's going to win this battle with the lumberjacks? That's comes out next. I'm putting my money on Clayton.
Why didn't he check before throwing the axe to see whether there was someone behind the partition? He could have killed somebody. This is the type of careless behavior people are concerned about that he's going to do at the Department of Defense. Here's another clip where he admits to not washing his hands.
I don't think I've washed my hands for 10 years. Really, I don't really wash my hands ever.
Help me!
No, I inoculate myself. It's just not, germs are not a real thing. I can't see them, therefore they're not real.
So you're becoming...
He does not wash his hands? Wait, more importantly, he doesn't believe germs are real? So why is Donald Trump picking this guy? First of all, Pete Hegseth is a veteran who served tours both in Iraq and Afghanistan and has 2 Bronze Stars. Maybe the reason he does not wash his hands is because he's so used to being out on the battlefield. What is really ironic is that the people who are criticizing Pete for not having experience are the same people who wanted to elect a vice president who engaged in stolen valor. Pete Hegseth also has a really defined vision for the Department of Defense.
Well, first of all, you got to fire, you got to fire the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and you got to fire this. I mean, obviously, you're going to bring in a new Secretary of Defense, but any general that was involved, general, admiral, whatever that was involved in any of the DEI woke shit, has got to go. Either you're in for war fighting, and that's it. And that's the only litmus test we care about. You got to get DEI and CRT out of military academies, so you're not training young officers to be baptized in this type of thinking. And then, whatever the standards, whatever the combat standards were, say, in, 1995, let's just make those the standards. And as far as recruiting, to hire the guy that, did Top Gun Maverick and create some real ads that motivate people to want to serve.
In case you missed that, he said, any general that was involved in any of the DEI woke shit has got to go. He has also written a book on the subject.
in that
Which brings
aspect.
us to your book and the premise of it that hopefully spurs some action and some change.
I love this institution. That's why I wrote the book. The Army I know, the Army we need, should be focused on outcomes, on forging individuals, on building teams, on shared missions, on winning battles, on winning wars, on outcomes. Anything that doesn't accomplish the mission is just a distraction. And in war, and I've seen it, distractions get people killed.
It sounds to me like he knows what he's talking about. But the most telling thing in my mind is that he has a tattoo on his arm that says Deus Vult. This is Latin for God wills it. I think Pete Hegseth is a spectacular choice for Secretary of Defense. Then we have Robert Kennedy Jr. He was appointed as Secretary of Health and Human Services. In this position, he will oversee the CDC, the NIH, and the FDA. His biggest campaign issues were around health. He challenged the way the government handled the pandemic. He challenged Big Pharma. He challenged the food manufacturing companies. I have never heard someone in government talk this way about health before.
If we took all of these chemicals out, our nation would get healthier immediately. We'd have fewer sick days. We'd have better focus. We'd have less anxiety. Our kids would learn more easily. We'd lose weight. We'd have more energy. We'd have fewer tumors and longer lives. But the Democrats who claim to be all about health care have stood by watching other countries ban these poisons and make our kids sick, asthmatic, hyperactive, and depressed. They left them on every supermarket shelf in America. They even used your tax money to put them in your kids' school lunch. So their big food and their big ag donors probably gave them all that golden handshake and the big money hug. And their big pharma donors probably called them up and thanked them also, because now they're going to make billions selling Adderall, Prozac, and rescue inhalers. Enough is enough. President Trump and I are going to stop the mass poisoning of American children. Together, we're going to make America healthy again.
Make America healthy again. That's such a good idea. Why has nobody tried this before? But for some reason, people are really scared that he's going to fire a lot of people at the FDA and change the way that things are done. For all you people out there who are complaining, let me just remind you that this is the current Assistant Secretary for Health. Who would you like to listen to for health advice? This person or this guy? Who is going to make America more healthy? Leave your comments down below. Next is Tulsi Gabbard. She was announced as the Director of National Intelligence. She will be in charge of all the intelligence agencies. We all know who Tulsi Gabbard is. She was the Democrat who challenged her own party and endorsed Donald Trump. What is ironic is that Tulsi was placed on a terrorist watch list after her criticism of Kamala Harris. She went from being on the terrorist watch list to being in charge of the terrorist watch list. I wonder if you're seeing a pattern here. Donald Trump is selecting people to lead the same agencies that they themselves have been victims of. It is clear that Donald Trump is trying to clean up these agencies. Under Tulsi Gabbard, Donald Trump has appointed John Ratcliffe to head the CIA. He's a former congressman from Texas, and he was considered one of the most conservative congressmen. Here he is talking about Joe Biden's corruption.
The fact that you're hearing bribery charges against a sitting president, and yet the media and the Biden DOJ is zeroing in and ramping up the heat on former President Trump.
Well, Maria, I don't think it's that they're ignoring it. I think it's that they're scared. Look, you have to keep in mind that they're all co-conspirators in this. They're all complicit in this. What I mean by that is all of this stuff wasn't. It was the fact that the mainstream media went with all of the things like the Hunter Biden laptop as Russian disinformation. They promoted the 51 intelligence officials that were lying. They promoted the Russia collusion story. All of these things, and folks at the Department of Justice and the FBI, they lied to get FISA warrants to spy on the Trump campaign. So they're all they were all part of this, and they're all complicit in this, and there's so much at stake. And if it unravels, it's not just political folks that will take a fall on this. It's the American people will see it for what it is.
It is clear that he intends to shed a light on corruption at the CIA. But it doesn't end there. Here he is talking about UFOs.
I actually wanted to get this information out and declassified before I left office, but we weren't able to get it down into an unclassified format that we could talk about quickly enough. But frankly, there are a lot more sightings than have been made public. Some of those have been declassified. When we talk about sightings, we're talking about objects that have been seen by Navy or Air Force pilots or have been picked up by satellite imagery that, frankly, engage in actions that are difficult to explain.
UFOs? He's going to tell us about the aliens? This is the guy who will be the head of the CIA. He's going to have access to all the information on UFOs, but also the JFK files, the Epstein files, the P. Diddy files. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what he declassifies. Next, we have Kristi Noem appointed as the Secretary of Homeland Security. She is the governor of South Dakota. She has perhaps the biggest job of them all. The Department of Homeland Security seems to be the source of most of the corruption during Joe Biden's presidency. They were involved in the Secret Service blunders on the attack on Trump's life. They were responsible for opening up the U.S. border to illegal immigrants. They are also implicated in undercover operations during the protests at the Capitol. She has a lot of cleaning up to do. Under Kristi Noem, Tom Homan was appointed as the border czar. He is responsible to fulfill Donald Trump's plan to deport illegal immigrants.
I got 20,000 men and women in ICE are going to do their job with no apology. Congress has enacted a law that protects this country. People need to understand, but what if they're not criminal aliens? Look, entering this country illegally is a crime. Every illegal alien in this country committed a crime to get here. So they're all criminals. And look, there's some worse than others. I get that. And even if they're not a criminal alien, when you cross that border and you overwhelm the Border Patrol, just because you're simply illegal alien, not a criminal, when you overrun the Border Patrol, that's when they get busy changing diapers, making baby formula, making hospital runs, making transportation runs. That's when the fentanyl comes across to kill 250,000 people. That's when you got 600% increase in sex trafficking. That's when you have a record number of terrorists crossing the border and people on the terrorist watch list. Illegal migration is not a victimless crime. We're going to enforce the law without apologies. And the day Donald Trump takes that oath, we're in a go mode. And if any government wants to stand in the way, go ahead and do it. We'll see what happens.
Tom Homan has previously served as the acting director of ICE. He knows the immigration issues, and he can get it done. This is someone that conservatives are really happy to see get appointed. Next is Lee Zeldin. He was appointed as EPA Administrator, or the Environmental Protection Agency. This is a position that most people don't think much about, but he will probably have a bigger impact on your life than anybody else. What's been happening at the EPA is that they will issue these rules that everyone is mandated to follow in order to combat climate change. For instance, the EPA issued a rule banning a certain type of thermostat by 2025. Now, Congress never passed a law about this. The EPA just unilaterally decided what you're allowed to put in your home. This is obviously unconstitutional, but the EPA has issued a ton of rules like this. The EPA is trying to secretly control every aspect of your life in the goal of climate change. The Supreme Court recently ruled against the EPA when they tried to put state-level caps on carbon emissions. What the EPA was trying to do was to stop states from using coal power plants and force them to switch to green energy types like windmills. The EPA does not have the power to do that. So what Lee Zeldin needs to do is go through all the EPA rules and eliminate them. He will be giving Americans back their freedom to live their lives. This is going to make your life so much better. And Lee Zeldin is exactly the guy to do this. He's a Republican politician from New York. He's a former congressman. He previously ran for governor. He knows all the business leaders in New York, and he understands the impact of these EPA regulations on business. The decisions he will make can supercharge our economy. So I know that was a lot of information, but let me know what you think. This gives us a good idea of the direction of the Trump administration. So let me know in the comments, do you think that Donald Trump is doing a good job? And if you like these videos, consider signing up to become a channel member on my website, wolvesandfinance.com. For $6 a month, your support helps me to continue to make these videos. I'm Zach from Wolves and Finance. Thank you for watching.